Welcome back to Project YTCH, and today we're going to be doing our first computer build, at least on video. I'm going to show you guys how to assemble the computer, what different components are, what they do, and what different bottlenecks of performance could be. Without furthermore, let's get to it. Okay, now that we're on the bench, let's go over some basic components and the parts of the computer, starting from the motherboard. Here you have the motherboard. I'm gonna take off the forgot to take off the heatsink. But you've got your heatsink, right? That should pop off like this one. Should pop off. And that pops off like that. And then below your heatsink would be your main processor. Now on these older boards, to lift up the processor, what you do is you bend this. There's a, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little tab, metal bar right here. You're going to push that out and lift up, and that will release the unlock the processor. Now with the processor, you want to be very careful. Usually you want to use an anti-static wristband, but if you don't have one, it should be fine. You should be really careful. If you're building a brand new computer from scratch, I'd really highly recommend getting one of these anti-static ESD straps, is what they're called. It's just a strap here that you put around your wrist, and then you can either plug it into the ground prong on the outlet, or you can clip to a piece of metal that's grounded. I recommend going to the ground prong. It's a little safer. Essentially, you put it around your wrist, and then when you're working on it, static will go into the ground and not into whatever you're working on. But this is an old computer. I'm not too worried about it. It's handled worse. So I'm going to take the processor out so I can show you guys. This is an older processor. It's an AMD. I forget the model of it. But it's an old AMD processor. Now, when you go to install this processor back in, there is a little, I don't know if you can see this, there's a little, what you can see, a little triangle right there on the end of the processor that marks the direction. Now, you'll see a corresponding you should see a corresponding triangle on the motherboard here. So you correspond the triangles, you kind of just let it drop and place it into the socket. Make sure it's nicely just in there. You wiggle around, doesn't wiggle around, it's not moving. And you should be able to take your little bar right here, you're gonna push it down and then lock it. Now usually this already has thermal paste on it, but usually you want to you get a little tube of thermal paste and you will apply it to the processor. After you get that applied, then you should be able to just slide your heatsink down on with the thermal paste on, and then you want to then lock your heatsink. Some of them don't lock on, they actually screw onto the board, and so you'll have to keep an eye out for that. And then always look at your user manual for your motherboard before you start building. Now, I know this motherboard, I just unassembled it, so I won't be looking at the user manual, but I took pictures of where everything connections go. So you want to make sure you know exactly where each and every connection is and where it goes and what it does. So I know that, and you can also read the board, but I still recommend looking at your user manual. So now it says channel 2 fan. This is your channel 2 fan, and then this is your CPU fan right here. So I'm going to plug it right back into the 4-pin CPU fan port. Now, moving on. So, I'll turn that back on. Moving on, let me move my screws over here. And then right here, we have our RAM. Our RAM stands for Random Access Memory. What that allows us to do is that allows us to run things on the computer. So let's say you have a program you're running. That program is accessed through the RAM. And then anything you save goes to your storage. You also will hear this referred to as memory, and don't get memory confused with your hard drive space. Your hard drive space is where everything is stored. So, make sure you look at your user manual, know where all your ports are, and now to install the RAM, all RAM, including DDR3. There's different levels of RAM. I don't think they sell DDR3 motherboards anymore. You might be able to find them, but this is DDR3. There's DDR2, DDR3, and DDR4. This is DDR3 RAM, but like all RAM, it will have a little prong, a little divot right in the middle. You want to match that divot with a line on your motherboard. You'll see a little line on your motherboard, and that will indicate the direction. Now, before I install this, actually, you always want to check your channels. So with RAM on a motherboard, you have 2 channels usually. If you have 4 slots, you usually have 2 channels. 2 will be for one set, and 2 will be for another set. Now, if the RAM doesn't match, if you're using a set of RAM, 2 sticks, then you have to make sure the RAM matches space as well as speed. So with this particular RAM, it's DDR3, and I believe these are 4 gigabytes apiece. So that on most motherboards, it will be, let's say, it'll be probably black and black will be one set, and yellow and yellow will be another set. That's the only colors that correspond to this, but I'm using that as an example. So yellow, and yellow, black and black will usually be a set. Now on this motherboard, it's a little different. That's what I'm saying. You have to always read your user guide. It's one set, and then 2 set, not staggered. It's one next to the other. And so we're gonna place this down in, and until it locks, so click on your side. And then you're going to do the same thing with your other slot. Now with RAM, you can see how I'm picking up by the edges. You usually want to always handle it by the edges, and you never want to touch the pins here and or the side. Now it is okay to touch the side if you have a metal or a cover over the top like I do here, but I still don't recommend trying to touch everything. You want to be careful of all your pins. Now I'm going to place this down into my motherboard like so. Click and click. That wasn't good. Okay, that's fine. Click and click, and then that will be that. Usually you want to assemble your processor, your heatsink and fan on the processor, and your RAM all before you put it inside the case here. So now what I'm going to do is I have I'll assemble even the graphics card and everything, and I'll show you how to put everything in. Now graphics cards range from different sizes and shapes. Like I have an old ATI Fire Gel. For those of you who don't know, AMD bought out ATI in 2008 and renamed them Radeon. A lot of people know that name. So they'll sometimes look pretty bulky, and sometimes they won't. Yeah. So let's say we're using this one. We would this would go in the PCI, not PCI, the graphics slots. So on this board we have 2 graphics slots, one PCI Express by 1 and one PCI Express by 16. So let's say we're installing this one. You would slide it. I like to do it usually on the corner of a table or something, so I have a flat surface right here. And then so that it can stick over. You're gonna slide this just gently and apply a little pressure until it kind of just clicks down in, and it should lock. It should lock. And then we will also, but this is not the graphics card we're using. Just pop it out. There's a little tab right here that I'm gonna just push down and lift up the graphics card very carefully. And so since it's not the one we're going to use, it's broken. I would use it if it weren't not working. It's old graphics card. I think it's only worth $30, but we're going to use this NVIDIA Quadro. I don't know what model it is. I think I have to install drivers for it too. I don't know. But anyways, this one will go right in here like this. Now, most people will, or not most, I don't know how many people do this, but a lot of people will actually install both their graphics card inside on the motherboard before putting it inside the computer. I don't like to do that just because I feel like it's a little harder. So I usually leave it to the side while I assemble my the case into the while I assemble everything inside the case. So that's this bit for the motherboard segment right now, and then we're going to let's go over the other components of the PC really quick before we start diving into the build. So now we have our storage, our drive. This is 1 terabyte. If you, for those of you who don't know, it's 1,000, I believe 1,024 gigabytes is the terabyte. And then we also have for our storage on this build, we'll be using a smaller 2-inch. This is a 3-inch drive, HDD hard disk drive. This is also a 2-inch laptop HDD hard disk drive, and this one is 750 gigabytes. And then also in this build, we will be using a Ethernet card. I think this is only a 100 megabit per second Ethernet card. For those of you who don't know what that means it can handle 10 or 100 megabits per second on your Wi-Fi speed, or not it's not Wi-Fi, it's Ethernet. So you plug your internet cable, or whatever you want to call it, your Ethernet cable into here, and you can get between 10 and 100 megabits per second on your link speed going in and out of your network. So let's say you have the difference between your link speed and your internet speed. Your internet speed is how fast your internet is coming into your house. Your link speed is how fast your computer can handle interior network. So that means let's say two computers inside the same network are communicating with each other. The link speed is how fast those two computers can communicate with each other. Now, if we have two computers, one on the different networks, one's on LAN, one's on your own LAN network, local area network, and one's on another network somewhere else, you have to depend on both your internet speed and your link speed, if that makes sense. I can elaborate that on later if you guys so choose. This will also be using a card reader, so it'll do SM, XD, CFMD cards, mini and micro SD cards, and MS Pro Duo cards. I think the only thing I've ever seen MS Pro Duo card on is PlayStation Portable. And then lastly, we will be, or not lastly, actually, we have one more component. This is a DVD drive, DVD reader writer. Here's our screws that we'll be using, and then lastly we have what's called a PSU, or otherwise known as a power supply unit. And what this does is this plugs into the wall and provides power to all the different components on your motherboard. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and if you want to see more content like this and more, and just bigger, better projects, any of your ideas, please like, subscribe, and please support me on Patreon, especially if you want to see bigger and better projects. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in another one, and have a nice day.